Good morning, everyone. This is Amy Wooten, Executive Director for Educator Preparation and Licensure at the Tennessee Department of Education. I'd like to welcome you this morning to a webinar to begin our process for data collection regarding the report card and annual reports for 2018. In just a moment, I'm going to turn over the presentation to my colleagues. But before that, I wanted to take a quick moment to address an issue that has come up. Several of you have emailed and asked us if we have a plan or know yet how the changes related to T and Ready will affect or impact the report card or annual reports. The Commissioner has begun communication with districts regarding the impacts for teachers, schools, and districts for this year. That information we will share in the next iteration of the EPP update. We encourage you to review that. There have not been decisions made related to report cards and annual reports, but we expect we will have some more information for you about that over the course of this summer. We thank you for your patience through this process, and of course, if you have any feedback for us, feel free to email any one of us on our team. Having said that, we're excited about launching this data collection process, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Michael Derline.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a brief but packed agenda. First, we're going to give a general overview reminder of the State Board report cards and the annual reports and the purpose that they serve. We'll then talk a lot about the data collection process this year, which you'll note we've changed a number of things primarily to reduce the burden on you for the reporting process. We'll then review a template and discuss the process by which you will fill out that template and submit it to the department and board. And then we'll talk about the timeline for submission this year. So I'm going to turn it over to Spenser to speak briefly about the report card.
So most of you are familiar with the Teacher Preparation Report Card. It's existed since legislation was passed in 2007. It's existed in its current form since 2016 after the State Board resumed control over the report card after it had been previously been published by THEC. Some noteworthy things about it are that it's publicly available, and in addition to serving our EPPs, we also hope that the information included in the report card is useful to districts and candidates or prospective candidates. And then just to review the data that's on the Teacher Prep Report Card, we have EPP level data for 9 metrics across 3 domains. In the most recent iteration of the report card, we were able to add disaggregations for each of those metrics so that we could go a little bit deeper than that, but still the main purpose was to provide easily consumable data that looks at the EPP level. And then we also now are in our final format in terms of the number of years of data included on the report card. So the 2017 report card included completers from the 2013-14, 14-15, and 15-16 academic cohorts. And this year, the 2013-14 data will be falling off to be replaced by the 16-17 data that we'll be collecting from you this year.
And I'd like to give a brief overview again of the Insights tool and the Performance Report, the 2 reports that are available under the umbrella of annual reports. Before I do that, I did want to just kind of remind folks that the foundational data that's used for the report card and the annual reports is the same data source. And I think each year we get better and better at ensuring that the data quality is as good as it can possibly be, so that both reports are reflective of the completers for the 3-year cohort. And that the metrics are, if they're not the same, that we have a good rationale for why there may be some differences. So the Insights tool, really the purpose of this tool is to provide EPPs with detailed information to support your continuous improvement. So the goals of this tool is really to allow the user to interact with multiple metrics, disaggregate data across various levels, including program design characteristics. So this tool has been produced for 2 years, and we anticipate we'll produce it next year as well, and that it will look fairly similar with some improvements. And then the performance report, which was introduced for the first time this past year, is really the tool that looks at specific metrics and applies an accountability structure to those metrics as well as the domains and then overall. So this is a report that is used by EPPs, the state, and review teams to help inform the decision to conduct an interim review, which would be required if a provider falls below expectations overall 2 years in a row. And it also will inform approval recommendations during that comprehensive review. I'm going to turn it over to Spenser now, who's going to talk through the data collection process this year.
Thanks, Michael. So as Michael mentioned, we are changing a few things with how this will be done this year, in large part to try to make your lives easier. So to that end, there were a few fields that we were able to remove from the data collection this year that we think we'll be able to collect in other ways if we do end up needing them. So that includes the county code that we'd previously asked for Tennessee residents, the content verification method for the different endorsement areas of each completer, which edTPA assessment was being used, as well as the undergraduate primary and secondary majors of your completers. There was one field that we now are making required. Previously, clinical mentor, teacher, name, and license numbers have been optional, but this year that will be a requirement.
And I'll add there, this is Michael, this is an area of particular interest to the state. We want to be able to better understand the characteristics that support novice educators. Many of you may know that we're engaging in clinical mentor training initiatives with a few select EPPs. So this is really an opportunity for us to better understand some of the things that positively support novice educators. So we're excited about the work we're going to do there, and we're hoping to get that our findings and our information back out to providers as soon as we're able.
And so in addition to those changes, the big thing that we've changed this year is that instead of sending you guys a blank template for you to completely fill out with all of your completers, we have been able to populate a template with information in the following fields that will have you review, but we hope to kind of cut out a lot of the work for you. So everything from the EPP name to license number, social security number, name information, date of birth, state code, race and ethnicity, as well as some program details such as the program type, the clinical practice type, whether they're instructional leader completer and teacher completer. And then we'll also be able to get information on when they completed their degree, if applicable, and the endorsement areas that they were endorsed in.
And the big reason why we're able to provide this information this year for you is because the 2016-17 cohort was the first cohort that was, the licensure recommendations were submitted directly through TN Compass. So we're really excited about this.
And so related to that, there are two different ways that different types of EPPs will be receiving this populated data. So for those of you who do have a TN Compass account, you'll be able to receive it through that account, and I'll walk through that in just a second. But for those of you who do not have a TN Compass account yet, you'll be able to get the file through OwnCloud, and we'll also talk about that. And so if you do have a TN Compass account, you'll be able to see your file up there in the announcement section. So for my colleague Hugh Potter here, you see up in the upper left-hand corner, it says message for Hugh, and then there's a file right under there, the TN Compass EPP report card file. So that's where you'll see your report if you do have a TN Compass account, and you should be able to download it straight from there. But if you do not have a TN Compass account, you'll be able to receive it through OwnCloud, which is also how you'll be submitting your completed templates. So the website there is listed, tencloud.tn.gov/OwnCloud. You'll need a CA number to log in, and we'll be sending that information out prior to requesting your data or posting your data, since we know many of you probably haven't used this account since you uploaded your information last year. We'll also send out directions for resetting your password, because we know we've had some issues with that in the past, and so we want to make sure that there are clear instructions for how to reset not just the password to log in, but also the encryption password because you have to be able to encrypt the file in order to send it securely. So we'll make sure to send you both the CA number that you'll need as well as instructions for how to reset those passwords, assuming most of you don't have them saved from last year. And then once you are able to access the account, you'll just be able to log in there. We will have shared a folder with your institution's name on it with each of you, so that once you log into your own cloud account, that should just be right there. You'll be able to go into that file and access the template that we're providing with you. And also, when you're ready to upload your completed template, you'll just go into that same folder and upload that there as well. And so the next important thing is what you'll need to do once you get that populated template. So first, you'll have to go through all of the data that we have provided with you. We want to make sure that we're including the correct completers there and that the data that we have for them is correct. We hope that this will be a little bit easier than having to provide all the data yourself, but we do want to make sure that you're still reviewing this for accuracy. And then there are going to be a few fields that we don't have the data for. So in the data dictionary and on the template that we sent out yesterday, these are columns 23 through 40. So all of those columns you'll need to provide the information for, even for the completers that we have pre-populated. And then we also want to make sure that if there are any candidates that for whatever reason were not in TN Compass, that you're providing all the data for them, so not just columns 23 through 40, but also the stuff that's pre-populated for all the other completers as well. So now we're just going to quickly go over sort of a sample template that we sent out yesterday and make sure that everything seems pretty straightforward to you there. All right, and I think you should be able to see it on there. This is the provider tab where you'll put in your institution code, verification from your dean or director that they've reviewed all this data and they find it accurate, whether or not your institution participated in edTPA for this cohort. And then another thing that we've added this year is information on your primary partner. So depending on how many you have, we have a drop-down menu here that lists the different district codes. So you'll be able to go into there and choose the districts that you have a primary partnership with. And then on the completer tab, this is where you'll have the information about your individual completers. For each column, there should be a notification that comes up when you click on the top of the column to tell you what exactly we're looking for here. And then, as you can see here, we've got a few completers pre-populated for this sample university. So this is the stuff that you'll just need to walk through and review to make sure that we have accurately. You can review this information and make changes as needed, but hopefully it should all be correct. And then you can see here we have a couple of instructional leader completers, and so the information that we don't need for those completers should be grayed out. So you'll see that where we have information for the teacher completers, there's just the cells are shaded in, so you don't need to enter anything in those cells. And then starting with clinical mentor in column 23, this is the information that we weren't able to pre-populate, so you'll have to enter this information in for everyone, except in the cases where it's grayed out. So this includes the clinical mentor information, program or major GPA, undergraduate GPA, and then standardized test scores and whether or not they were considered in admissions. And so for these, we do have data validation built in, so if you try to enter a score that is not within the acceptable range, you should get an error message there. So for example, if I try to enter a 37 for an ACT composite score, I'll get this warning to enter in a two-digit number between 1 and 36. And so hopefully we've built in some checks on the front end to make sure that in the data review everything goes as smoothly as possible. But that should help guide you as you're making sure you're entering in the correct information there. And then in the cases where you might be adding some completers, I just want to note for most of these options, we do have a drop-down menu so that you can either enter in the correct code from the data dictionary, or if you forget what that's supposed to be, you can see right there what the different options are for you.
I'd like to note, too, that we have made some changes to the coding in the data dictionary, so you'll notice that. And the purpose behind that was to better align with the coding that is in the background in TN Compass. So that way, we can shift to aligning everything with the data that you're already submitting in Encompass. So if you're used to entering certain codes for certain fields, just please be mindful that those may not be in use anymore, and you'll want to reference the current data dictionary, which I sent out yesterday. Okay, so our timeline for this process is that by May 25th, you will have a file delivered to you either through Encompass or OwnCloud. And then by June 29th, you will need to submit data back to us through your OwnCloud account. And again, we will make sure that everyone has directions for that process very soon. And then by September 1st, the completer/candidate file will be completely finalized. So that will be really the date when any changes cannot be made to that file. So we anticipate we will have kind of an iterative process with providers just to confirm that everything looks accurate in the file. And if we have any issues, we'll communicate directly with you.
I'd like to reiterate that it's really critical for us to have a date by which we have a finalized file. And I know that over the past few years, we've worked into the fall to make changes to the file. We really prefer to try not to do that. It has significant impact on our ability to work with our vendors that support this process. And we've had to make big asks of them, and they've gone above and beyond to rerun major data files to incorporate changes that were made after our initial process. So we're going to really strive this year to finalize those files of your completer and candidate data by September 1st. If you're having challenges feeling comfortable with completing the file, we encourage you to make sure you're reaching out and talking with us, and we'll be in communication throughout the summer and in August particularly, so that we can support you in any way to try to finalize those files no later than September 1.
And then we have here the contact information. If you do have questions about the data or the template or about OwnCloud, feel free to reach out to me, spenser.gwozdzik@tn.gov. And you can also direct your questions to Hugh Potter, who will be working closely with me on this as we attempt to further align the data that we're using for the report cards and the annual reports.
All right, that is all we had. We have not, that I can tell, received any questions over chat, but we'll give folks just a minute or so to submit any questions you may have. And again, as Spencer mentioned, we have our contact information available if you think of some after the fact. We think we saw a question pop up on Spencer's screen, but if you could please send questions directly to me. I was managing the process for responding to questions. So for those folks who just sent some questions through, if you'd like to go ahead and just copy and paste them and send them to me directly, that would be appreciated. Okay, so the one question that we saw was, do you want all completers, even if they did not receive a Tennessee license? And the answer to that is yes. This is where Encompass will not be able to pull those folks. And we do need those people in your file as we have in the past. So this will be where you will have to add rows to the data spreadsheet that we send to you.
We've got a couple of praxis questions. It looks like we have a couple of questions about the praxis. With the question about whether you should report a praxis PPST score in addition to a core score, I think we're still having some internal discussions about how we want to work on that, but we'll make sure to let you know what we end up deciding about how to report the PPST there. Then we had another score about whether or not it'll appear on the report card that you're being penalized for using praxis core for admission. We are also having some internal discussions about how we want to handle the ACT metric on the report card this year. One thing that we've discussed is including passing praxis core scores there. So we haven't made a final decision about that, but that's also something that we're actively working on.
And we got one question for clarification. Just for clarity, we can access the data file through tNcompass account if we have one, but the data file is uploaded into OwnCloud. That is correct. So there will be two ways that you will potentially receive the file. We will post it to your tNcompass announcements section if you do have an active tNcompass account. Otherwise, we will have to use OwnCloud to get that file to you.
And then we also had another ACT-related question about super scores. So that's another thing that we're still discussing internally, but we will make a decision on that one soon because we know that that's something that you guys are going to have to report to us. And then we also had a question about the definition of a completer. So that's something that we try to address in the data dictionary, but anybody who completed your preparation program during the defined dates that we have or was serving as a teacher of record as part of the job embedded program should be included in your reporting here.
Okay, again, if you do think of other questions after this webinar, please don't hesitate to send them our way. We very much appreciate you taking the time out of your day to participate in this, and we look forward to collaborating with you in the coming weeks and months on ensuring that we have the most accurate data for your EPP. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.